everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth Podcast. I'm Anish Gupta, and today we are doing another episode of the QB Whisperer series. And this episode is going to be about Jared Goff. So let's honestly get right into it. Obviously, we talk about the context of the quarterback back in college, what they did prior to this year in the NFL, and what they're doing this year, and can they be a franchise guy? So let's really jump right into it with Jared Goff. His college career was obviously at the University of California, Berkeley. And, he basically got better each year, I would say. His sophomore year, he had 35 touchdowns and 7 picks. His junior year had 43 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Now, you could argue both sides. You could say he threw more touchdowns, but obviously he had a little bit more turnovers. But he was great in the 2-minute drill, and he really didn't have to overthink at the line of scrimmage. So that really helped him, especially with college quarterbacks too, right? At the NFL, it's more of a mental game, but in college, you don't have to think as much. So I think that helped him, especially in those, short drives. And there was a bit of concern, though. He was sacked 81 times and had 11 fumbles. So he was deemed turnover prone. And he drew comparisons to Matt Ryan, which, if you really think about it, currently, he plays very similar to Matty Ice. But we all know what happened. The Rams took him over Carson Wentz in the 2016 draft. But, his first year in 2016, he was an absolute bust with Jeff Fisher. I mean, he went 0 for 7 in 7 career games that year, 54% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 7 picks. Just not a good year. But, I think things really took off with Sean McVay. We all know what happened, right? Todd Gurley had a resurgence, but also Jared Goff, had a breakout year with 28 touchdowns in 2017, took the team to 11-5. And, obviously they were young, so they kind of lost to an experienced Atlanta team that year. But 2018, right? He takes this team to the Super Bowl. And, there were a lot of questions with the call in the Rams-Saints game. But Jared Goff honestly outplayed Drew Brees down the stretch of that game. Drew Brees threw the pick, which eventually kind of costed them. So, I don't want to put this, that, Jared Goff got carried in that playoff, run that he had. But we all know kind of there was a turning point, right? Just to give reference back to the 2018 season, he had 4,600 yards, 32 touchdowns. So it was a good year, and he really didn't get carried by his O-line and offense. I thought he was a big part of it. But in the Super Bowl, obviously, he played terrible, and I think it was a little bit of a turning point for him, and it was a big kind of letdown in terms of his confidence. And there was one play in particular. I'm not going to talk about the Stephon Gilmore pick. I'm actually going to talk about the throw to Brandon Cooks. Now, I believe it was 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and he misses. It's not that he misses him; he throws it way too late, and that allows Jason McCourty to have one of the best passes defended I've seen in a while. But also, Cooks was basically looking back at the ball like a punt. I mean, he was waiting for it. You have to throw it as soon as he breaks off while the safety goes down. So that was a huge miss in the game. I mean, there were a bunch of times where that you could have looked at Jared Goff and thought, "What are you doing?" I mean, if the Rams defense holds a Tom Brady-led offense to 13 points, usually you win the game. But again, the whole memes of the Rams coming all the way just to kick a field goal definitely start in. But, I do want to say, though, there were some throws that, just were mishaps on the Rams themselves. I mean, there was actually, speaking of Brandon Cooks, there was another throw that he threw later in the game. It was just a perfect ball, and Brandon Cooks dropped it. I mean, he had his moments that you looked at and you were just like, what are you doing? But there were also some moments where the Rams didn't step up. So, I wanted to throw that as well. But, let's go to 2019. His passer rating dropped from 101 to 86. Obviously, the Rams kind of had a quote-unquote Super Bowl hangover. But I think the key point here is the Rams offensive line went from 5th ranked by, I believe, PFF to 31st ranked by PFF. That's a huge drop-off. And as a result, he had 16 interceptions and 10 fumbles. Yet, he still mustered 9 wins. Now, you can give credit to McVay, but again, he was playing with the hobbled Todd Gurley, right? And he was playing with, honestly, not the best overall unit on offense. I mean, aside from maybe Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, playmakers didn't really step up. You could say Tyler Higbee had a good finish to the year, but on defense too, a lot of defensive playmakers didn't step up when they needed to. And I think, the problem with that season also was they were 8-5. And in two key games against the Niners and the Cowboys, they crumbled. I mean, the Cowboys, they got destroyed. And then against the Niners, uh, their defense couldn't get off the field, but also Jared Goff got outplayed. And that honestly cost them a playoff berth last year. But, coming into 2020, now I know I'm recording this right after they lost to the Jets. And I did, yes, on Saturday say that this team was the third best in the NFC and it could beat the Chiefs. And you know what? I still believe that. One fluke game is not going to ruin the Rams' chances of doing anything in the NFC playoffs. They honestly needed a smack in the mouth. Fine. They should have had some with the two Niners losses, but okay. They needed this, I think, and they're going to bounce back. I believe they play the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. But this is good. Two big divisional games going into the playoffs. They will be battle tested, assuming they make it, of course, which I think they will. But again, Goff has been okay this year. Again, back to 2019, 16 picks, 10 fumbles, right? Like this year, he's had his turnovers. I believe he has 12 picks on the year so far, 20 touchdowns. It's been okay, right? What we've said, I think what many people have classified it is it's always what Goff are you going to get? I think that's the problem with this Rams because they have the best defense in the NFL and they have the offensive playmakers, right? Cam Akers has been doing his thing. It's just what Jared Goff are you going to get? Are you going to get the one that throws for 370 against the Bucks, or are you going to get the one that turns it over 4 times in a half against Miami? It's just, it's so up and down. But that being said, he has many strengths. And I think one strength that I like to point out too is, there are certain quarterbacks that just do good off play action. Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, but Jared Goff is honestly a top 3 quarterback out of play action. And I think it's just the time bought with it because, again, it's a rollout. So you buy a couple seconds and it's really good against the blitz because it takes that extra step for the blitzer, whether it's a nickel corner or something like that. It takes an extra second to get to the quarterback because they're a little bit further back. And I think with play action, again, with the extra time, it allows him to throw to the receiver before he makes his break. And that's something that's honestly really underrated to his game. The fact that you can throw it to the receiver and anticipate it before they're actually making the move is really incredible. So there was a throw to Robert Woods against Dallas, and I believe it was off play action as well. He sets himself perfectly. It's a perfect base, and he keeps his feet apart at hitch steps, which is great for a quarterback. You keep your feet steady. He brings his leg all the way through, and it's a 25-yard dot before Woods actually makes the break to the left. So it was a really good throw, and it just shows how accurate he can be with a clean pocket. Again, like I said, consistent with his footwork. He has really good throwing motion, but again, it's with a clean pocket. But hey, when given it, he has been very efficient, and I can't deny it. And it plays to his strengths. There was another throw to Cooper Kupp where he basically anticipates that Kupp's going to clear the linebacker, and it's a perfect I wouldn't say it's a post route, but I think it's a deep kind of crosser because, again, with McVay's system, it's, receiver routes take a little bit longer with McVay's kind of system. It's deep crosser, shallow routes. And again, he recognizes the hole in the zone. It was a cover 2. He recognizes that the linebacker is going to play in and the cover 2, right? That leaves the deep middle open. Now, keep in mind the two safeties play back, but they play kind of outside. So deep middle is actually open, and he anticipates that as soon as the linebacker takes a step forward, and it's a perfect throw before Kupp even makes a break to the left. And I think that's why, his arm talent and ball placement are essential, to his game, and they are very exceptional with that clean pocket, as I was mentioning. To go to his weaknesses, again, this kind of translates from college. He just doesn't have good post-snap reads, right? And that's also a product of, like, let's go back to 2019 when his O-line was really bad. He just didn't have time to make that extra read. He had to resort to his first one because pressure would get into his face, and he had to keep trusting it. And, it really wouldn't work. At times it would. Maybe he would fall a little bit in love with the first read, and that kind of caused some discrepancy with the plays as the season went on. But there was, again, for example, in the game against the Bucks last year, it was a cover 1 robber concept, and usually there's, the one linebacker blitzes in, the other one plays back in coverage to kind of cover the middle of the field while one safety plays back deep. But however, I believe the Bucks switched it. So I think Levante David, who was on the other side, actually went back in coverage, and the linebacker who was already up went for the blitz. So Goff doesn't see it, and he just ignores it. He ignores the disguise, and he loses sight of the play. He just assumes that it's a regular cover one, and I think it's a slant to the right, or sorry, left side of the field slant going right, and he just doesn't anticipate Levante David dropping back. And it was a terrible read, and it was just an easy interception. Um, there's another thing that we could talk about, his fumbling problem. I mean, 42 fumbles in the last 4.5 years. And come to think of it, Carson Wentz has got 50. I mean, these two quarterbacks they're turnover prone. I mean, top two quarterbacks from the 2016 class, they've turned it over a lot. And I think it's just translated from Cal. I'm not going to say, he can't fix it, but I mean, it's something that's been consistent. I mean, we've seen it with Jared Goff. I mean, 10 fumbles already in the year. That's not a good sign. And again, it just goes to show that, what Jared Goff am I going to get? And it shows how his playing style falls when pressure is in his face. And we've seen many quarterbacks that step up against the pressure, right? Like a Patrick Mahomes. And obviously I'm not going to compare the two, but if Jared Goff wants to be in that type of status, he's going to have to elevate with pressure in his face, which is something that he's going to have to face in the playoffs, which he did against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Which he did against the Niners week 16 last year. And which he did against Miami this year. And I think there was another play, which kind of goes back to his post-snap reads, thing that I was kind of adhering to. He doesn't let go of the first read. And again, like I was saying, that's kind of caused by his, inability to kind of respond to pressure well. So there was a throw to Cooper Kupp. I think it was a 2nd and 2, if I'm not mistaken. And he feels pressure from the left side, but he just immediately sticks to his first read because it's just trying to get the first down, and he just throws it a dart, and it just gets picked off by the defensive lineman. I mean, it was a clear indication that first read wasn't going to be there. And instead of maybe taking his time, maybe rolling out to the right, because I don't know why, but sometimes he just doesn't use his mobility, but he could have rolled out to the right, maybe thrown it away, get out of the tackle box and to avoid intentional grounding. But here he was so focused on that first read, it was just an easy pickoff. And it just kind of shows how his intelligence with the reads leaves little to, I mean, there's a lot to be desired there. But I'm not saying he's not a smart quarterback, but because again, like I said, when he anticipates safety and linebackers moving down, that's such a good thing to do because his accuracy at times can be perfect. I think there are plays where he'll recognize that the exact sweet spot between the safety and the corner down the seam, and it's just perfect. But there are also times where he tends to stick to his first read and forget about the other ones. Now, obviously, the question remains: can he be a franchise guy? Now, he's getting paid franchise money, right? And I say this: he has led his team to a Super Bowl. He has. He's got playoff experience. He is in a very good conference. He's in a very good division, and he's played up to it. He has. So for right now, I still say yes. Rams fans still believe in this guy. I still believe in this guy in the sense that I think he can still win some playoff games. Now, granted, he is inconsistent. Now, I need something. I need a flash or at least a sign that can show me, for the next few years, you can continue that. I always say this, it's not about how you start the year, it's how you finish. So right now they're 9-5. There are 2 weeks left. I'm pretty sure they're going to get in the playoffs. Now, I still believe this team can make a run. Now, I know this is a little bit of a future gamble, but we're also going back on what we've seen. But I always heard, I remember Shannon Sharp saying this, you're paying for what you're going to get, not what you have gotten. So when I say he's a franchise guy, I still believe he can be the Rams quarterback of the future, especially what he's been able to do in McVay's system. Now, long-term answer, again, remains to be seen. But as of right now, I think he is a franchise quarterback for the LA Rams. So, to kind of wrap it up, that's kind of my analysis on Jared Goff. Obviously a rough take on Saturday with the Rams. But I still have some faith in this team. I still think they can go far in the playoffs. Let me know what you guys think. Was there anything I missed with Jared Goff? Was there any strengths that I could have talked about? Were there any weaknesses that I missed? Especially, maybe he showed some this year that I missed. But, again, if you want more content on this, we have a QB Whisperer playlist. I've got a bunch of other quarterbacks that I've done so far and that I plan to do. So be sure to check that out. Turn on the bell for notifications. Obviously, we've got some other videos that I'll leave up um, in the description and to the top right of the screen. So be sure to check those out as well. Follow our socials down below. We're on the road to 500, so if you guys can help us with that, much appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.